2024 was a great year in gaming. If you were a Nintendo fan, if you were a PlayStation or an Xbox guy, you were just sitting around utilizing your most used application on those platforms, the Pornhub thing. And don't even get me started on what the PC gamers were doing. But when you look at what Nintendo was given last year, what the Big N granted to its fans, what you get is by far, up and away, the greatest video game lineup of the year. 2024 was fantastic, and 2025 is shaping up to be even better. Not only are we getting a lot of new interesting games, we're also potentially getting new hardware, which we know nothing about. But even with that being said, right, with the potential of new hardware on the horizon, the Nintendo Switch is still shaping up to have a really solid 2025. So let's count down Harmon Smith's top 10 Nintendo Switch games, upcoming Nintendo Switch games of 2025.
I recently got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! So imagine my surprise when Konami, out of the blue, announces that they will be releasing a bunch of the very early Yu-Gi-Oh! Tie-in video games. For those of you who don't know, these games came out before the rules of the actual TCG were established. So you get to see what Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like in its infancy. And for someone like me, who doesn't necessarily want to deal with like all the new complex rules all the time and stuff like that, someone who's still learning the game, this is actually a really exciting prospect. I grew up on the anime. I love the characters. I've been reading the manga. I'm really enjoying my time with this franchise and consider myself a fan of it. So the fact that we're getting a bunch of these games is actually pretty exciting news. And I can't wait to see just how well these games hold up.
Just for clarification, I am not a Professor Layton fan. I have a lot of issues with the way these games are structured, specifically the writing and just the abysmal endings. But there can be no denying that these are absolutely the best point and click adventure games I've ever played. The puzzles are phenomenal. There's all these great little mechanics. They're insanely fun. This series is a lot bigger than a lot of people realize. And I think, in theory, if the developer Level 5 actually has really gone through their redemption arc, really has managed to recover after their fall from grace a decade ago, making Fantasy Life 2 a mobile exclusive instead of making the sequel a 3DS game. If this is a proper return to form, we may see Level 5 return to being a major powerhouse Nintendo third-party developer, like they were during the DS days. This is really exciting news because I think Level 5 has a lot of potential. I think they've showcased their ability to innovate and come up with engaging, fresh new takes on these really old and tired genres. And they seem to be willing to try to appeal to the Nintendo demographic. They seem to be perfectly willing to create family-friendly titles that appeal to all ages and really encompass that Nintendo spirit. And that's something I've always really, really admired about them. I hope this game really demonstrates the stronger aspects of Professor Layton. I hope this is a nice return to form, and I hope this game's success leads Level 5 to returning to this IP and continuing to improve on their ideas and return to how they were back in their heyday. This very well could be Level 5's redemption arc. I was very unimpressed with the Metroid Prime 4 demo when I first saw it. And for me, personally, it reminds me a lot of how I felt when I saw Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remake for the first time, where it feels like that's it. That's what we've been waiting for all this time. I was very critical about this trailer. I really don't really see what people are excited about, besides the fact that Metroid Prime is back. And for me, considering the length of time since the last game, considering Retro's current situation, considering like this game's development cycle, I do believe that we should be a lot more apprehensive about this release than we currently are. But as it stands, I am still excited for it. I'm sure the game will be perfectly playable and enjoyable. It's just a matter of like, well, is this going to be a great Metroid game instead of just another Metroid Prime game? You know, watching this trailer, like every time, it just feels like Metroid Prime 3 again. It feels like there's no innovation, no change, no improvement. And Prime 3 was a fantastic game, but we're going to have to see just how this game turns out. You know, what exactly is this game's critical features? Like, what exactly are they not showing us? I think there has to be quite a bit we don't know about the game, but at this point, it could go either way. This could be the best thing ever made, or it could be a complete disappointment. As of right now, I am cautiously optimistic. It's interesting to see people try and downplay Donkey Kong Country Returns as if this isn't a highly successful, popular game that has kept Donkey Kong relevant for the past 20 years, ever since Rareware's unfortunate acquisition by Microsoft. This is a classic video game, and Nintendo knows that. It's why they have such a focus on its elements and merchandising, and it's considered the Donkey Kong game internally. Like, this was a massive success story for them. So to see this being released for a new generation is a really exciting news, especially, and I do think a lot of people don't understand this indicates that a new Donkey Kong Country game is in production. We saw this with Famicom Detective Club a couple of years back, right? Where out of nowhere they did remakes, re-releases of the first two Famicom Detective Club games, and what happens? They release a sequel out of the blue. And where I'm sitting, I think this is becoming a trend, where Nintendo is re-releasing games like this just before they unveil a new entry in the series. So I think it's very possible that we may get a new Donkey Kong Country game on the next piece of Nintendo hardware. Well, that remains to be seen, but even if it doesn't happen, Donkey Kong Country Returns is still an extremely exciting experience, especially since this is the 3DS version with the extra content that was not available in the Wii version. This will be the definitive version of that game for that reason alone. And I think a lot of people are really underestimating like what a big deal this is. People really don't understand how popular Donkey Kong Country Returns actually is, and this could be the beginning of a new golden age for Donkey Kong. So we'll have to see if that actually pans out, but as of right now, I am simply excited at the fact that a new generation of players will get to experience one of the absolute best games on Nintendo Wii. It feels like it's been forever since I got into a fighting game because every other fighting game right now seems to have dropped the ball. Street Fighter 6 looks lame, Tekken 8 looks lame. There's all these problems with both of those titles, you know, specifically not having a Nintendo version. So now that the Guilty Gear Strive is coming to Switch, you know, we all knew it would. This was not a game that was too demanding for the console. Now that Guilty Gear Strive is finally coming to Switch, way too late. It should have been a day one release. Now that Bridget and his friends are available on Nintendo consoles, the only viable platform, yes, I am finally going to get to try out Guilty Gear Strive. I am really excited about seeing what the hype is about in regards to this Arc System Works Fighter. So many people hype this up as like this really big deal. I've seen a lot of people talk about it. You know, I've been playing a lot of the older Guilty Gear games. I've been trying to get into this franchise, and I do really like it. And I'm really curious about Strive and how it holds up and how good it actually is. I don't see. I'm very, very curious about the quality of the game itself and whether it holds up compared to Dragon Ball FighterZ or Under Night in Birth, both of which I really, really liked. If this game is as good as it's hyped to be, this might be the new best traditional 2D fighting game on the market. We'll have to see, but as of right now, I am simply looking forward to a new fighting game on Nintendo Switch. Yep, this game is downloaded on my Switch already, but it is a 2025 game. Ys Memoir. An older Ys game that's been released on Nintendo Switch. Hot on the heels of the excellent Ys 10, this re-release is just going to be another stellar game in the Ys saga, which is quickly becoming my personal favorite action RPG franchise on the market. I love these games. I love the vibe. I love the sense of adventure. I love the gameplay. I just love everything about it. Like, this is an IP that I really think would resonate with a lot of Nintendo fans if they simply gave it a shot. Like, this is, I think, something I would put up there as being a really good alternative to The Legend of Zelda. Something that emphasizes more on the RPG side of things, that focuses more on like having, these grand stories and characters. Like, these games are fantastic and you absolutely should check them out. This may come as a surprise to a lot of you, but I am actually a very, very big Ninja Gaiden fan. I love Ninja Gaiden Black. I love the original NES games. I love Ninja Gaiden. So seeing it come back out of nowhere was actually a really big deal for me. I love these games. And the fact that this stuff can get produced again in this day and age, that it can find an audience, that developers are willing to invest in stuff like this, it really shows that times are a-changing. Back in the day, this stuff would be considered too hardcore for general audiences, that companies would not want to invest in producing products like this. But nowadays, stuff like this comes out all the time. And this may very well lead eventually to a proper resurgence of the 3D action games, which to this day are the absolute pinnacle of that genre. Far, far superior to that baby bottle guzzling Devil May Cry. Ninja Gaiden has far more credibility. They're far more difficult. They have more interesting platforming segments. They have better stories. The action is better. The series is actually innovated over time. And this very well may be the resurgence of this iconic brand that we've all been waiting for years. This is really exciting. I've been interested in playing the Suikoden games for probably about 15 years. I first read about the fifth one in Nintendo Power and really became intrigued by the concept of having hundreds of heroes going out on this JRPG adventure. And ever since then, I've heard stories about how excellent the first two games are on the original PlayStation. And I've been eagerly awaiting this release for quite some time. I hope it lives up to its reputation. It's been really strange to say because I'm not an Atelier fan. I don't know anything about the series. I've played a little bit of the original Ryza. I've played enough of it to know that I really enjoy the vibe and the characters and the tone they're going for and the gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. But looking at the footage of the next game in the series, Yumia, to me, it seems like the developers understand what people like me are looking for in these kind of RPGs. It seems like they really understand how to grow and evolve the formula and really make it engaging and interesting, and really going the extra mile to make it more popular, the way that Fire Emblem Awakening made Fire Emblem mainstream. This very well may be one of the last really big success stories on Nintendo Switch. We'll have to see if that's true, but Atelier is one of those weird franchises that has made a name for itself on the console. So this very well may be something that wins over a lot of new fans like myself. My game of the year for 2022 was Pokemon Legends Arceus, an absolute amazing evolution of the traditional Pokemon formula, with an engaging plot, fresh new mechanics, and this really cool vibe. this really cool usage of the license, this cool historical fantasy set in the Pokemon universe. It was a dream come true for me. This is something I never seriously thought I would get to play, and the fact that I did just really shows just how strong of a developer Game Freak actually is. They are absolutely the best in the business, even though currently the industry wants to deny it. Like, they constantly have been putting out bangers for 30 years, and not only have mainline Pokemon games been topping the charts, they've been innovating and evolving the IP past that with these Legend spin-off games that they are developing internally that really showcase just the kind of projects that Game Freak can make. And they're so innovative and so creative and do so much to flesh out the Pokemon universe that this is, I think, going to be the spin-off series that really appeals to people who have been playing these games for decades. It was incredible seeing what they did with the original Legends Arceus, but this game, which is coming out on Nintendo Switch, by the way, this game is shaping up to be something special. I am really, really looking forward to seeing more of this game.